evening and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Eugene Chan. Tonight's guest is Dato Gan Kai-chun, DSPN, who is otherwise known as KC. He is the chairman of the Hong Kong and Macau chapter of the Malaysian Chamber of Commerce. He was born in Malaysia and has been living in Hong Kong for over 36 years. He's a businessman and has a leading role in several international corporations, dealing in many sectors. They include banking and finance, property development, hotel management, and international trading. Tonight, we have invited him to tell us if he thinks Hong Kong, our beloved city, is still a good place for living and doing business. So welcome, KC.
Thank you, Eugene.
Before we start,
yes.
I'm sure many viewers would ask the same question. When you hear the word Dato, Dato, and with your post-nominal DSPN, what does that mean? And how do you get it?
Okay. The Malaysian government, through the state governors or sultans, would offer this title to Malaysians or people who have helped the country or the state to do things for them, to bring in investments, and to bring better living conditions. So these are generally the prospects of how you would get a dato-ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's quite a respectable...
Yes. It's a contribution to society.
So it's a kind of recognition to you.
Yes.
Just like our Justice of the Peace in Hong Kong.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I read in your bio that you came in Hong Kong in 1985.
Yep.
And what brings you to Hong Kong? And what has kept you here for the last 30 odd years?
Okay. Well, I came here in 1985 actually to start an office for our Singapore Hong Leong Group as a base to invest in mainland China. As you know, during the early days, Hong Kong was the most appropriate place to invest in mainland China. And in 1979, Mr. Deng Xiaoping opened up China for foreign investments.
Okay.
So we were invited to visit China through the good offices of the Bank of China and CITIC to visit China, Beijing, Fuzhou, and Xiamen. And after that, our first investment was the signing of an agreement with the Xiamen government to build an international hotel in Xiamen.
Oh.
And that was very early in those days, and it was the first international hotel in Xiamen.
Wow. Right. So do you like, personally, do you like living in Hong Kong after 36 years? And how would you compare that back home in Malaysia?
Actually, before even coming to Hong Kong, most of us Malaysians, and for that matter, people from ASEAN, are very familiar with Hong Kong, especially we grew up with TVB programs, We learn Cantonese songs,
right.
all from TVB, which is very popular in Malaysia and the region. So we feel very at home in Hong Kong. Yeah.
So for the last 36 years, I'm sure every place has changes.
Yes.
How would you describe the changes you have experienced here?
Well, it is quite normal that places would change. And of course, we see Hong Kong when we first came, and until today, well, there have been many changes, but overall, the city has improved tremendously, especially in infrastructure and the business volumes, especially in the stock market, in the financial market, in tourism, in the economic activities. Hong Kong has grown actually very fast.
With the recent happening in the last few years, has the enactment of the national security legislation changed things for the Malaysian business community? What I mean is for those who are actually working in investing in Hong Kong and for those who are thinking to come to Hong Kong.
Now, the national security law is actually a mild version of what we have at home, which is the Internal Security Act. So basically, we respect every government, wherever we go internationally, on how they run the country. So we are no different from being in Hong Kong, and we always feel safe.
Right. I've had some report from the American Chamber of Commerce earlier. A lot of the businesses are having second thoughts, or they have their citizens leaving Hong Kong or moving on. Do you have that similar experience with the Malaysian community?
If you look at the profile of Malaysians in Hong Kong, actually, most of them have been here for many years. The reason is that even though they want to go home, it's just 3 to 4 hours away on a plane ride.
Very close.
Yeah, and the culture the same. The businesses, they can run, they can move into China, mainland China, without any problem. So for Malaysians, as far as we have experience, we have not seen a single person moving out of Hong Kong.
Okay. So in your opinion, is Hong Kong still a very good place for foreign living and investment?
Yes, definitely. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the recent stock market, recent property prices, the confidence is all there. And it must definitely show that Hong Kong continues to prosper.
And just as a matter of interest, is there anything personally you feel the Hong Kong government can do to help, say, you've got Malaysians coming from, the new Malaysians coming to invest in Hong Kong. Is there anything the government you think can help?
Of course, definitely. But I think the government may not be able to provide the direct access to these people who are coming. Obviously, they are in touch with the Consul General Office of the Malaysian government.
Right.
And of course, they can do a direct approach on that basis. But on the other hand, in Hong Kong, we have the Malaysian Chamber of Commerce. And this is a platform whereby new Malaysians who come to Hong Kong can meet us and we can actually help them.
Right, so it sounds like you have a very mature structure in Hong Kong, right? You have your Consul General supporting existing and new Malaysians and the Chamber of Commerce. What do most Malaysians do in Hong Kong? I'm sure there'll be businessmen, but are there any other people doing other jobs or in other areas?
Malaysians have been in Hong Kong so many years. If they are not, in fact, they are in a lot of other businesses. Some of them run big corporations. Corporations that are Malaysian-based, but are branching out in Hong Kong and using Hong Kong to move into China to invest. On the other hand, there are thousands of Malaysians who are professionals working in various industries, whether it's banking, whether it is engineering, architectural, medical professions.
I think some of the professors are from Malaysian-based.
Yes. A lot of professors are in the university. Yes.
Do you have approximately how many Malaysians actually live in Hong Kong?
We have always been in touch with the Council's office, and their estimate is about 20,000 of Malaysians in Hong Kong.
So how would you describe the trade relationship between Hong Kong and Malaysia? Apart from this doing businesses, can you tell us more about the trade relationship?
Yeah. Hong Kong and Malaysia have had a long history of trade. Very friendly and very cooperative over the years. And if you judge in terms of turnover, in the year 2020, the trade between Hong Kong and Malaysia amounted to 200 billion Hong Kong dollars.
Wow.
And if you are talking about investments of Hong Kong companies into Malaysia, the accumulated FDI, foreign direct investment into Malaysia, amounts to a massive 162 billion Hong Kong dollars.
Right, so it's quite a sizable two-way traffic, isn't it?
Yes.
And as you mentioned a couple of times, Malaysia is one of the ASEAN countries. How does Hong Kong factor into this relationship?
Well, Malaysia, being one of the more active partners of ASEAN, made up of 10 countries with more than 600 million people, most of these ASEAN businesses are represented somewhat in Hong Kong too.
Okay.
Now, as far as ASEAN is concerned, in the year 2019, there was a foreign trade agreement, and there was also a foreign investment agreement. And these two agreements actually spelled out all the things that investors can do both ways. And they also have comprehensive detailing how to have, in case you have disputes, how to settle them. And it also covers almost every aspect of businesses, whether it's trade, investments, or otherwise.
Hong Kong has always been very
Yes.
renowned for our finance industry.
Yes.
Does our finance industry help in any way with your businesses?
Of course. In fact, a lot of Malaysian companies come to Hong Kong to raise funds.
Oh,
They come to Hong Kong also to find partners to invest into their own businesses. And even today, actually, there is being introduced in the market in Malaysia, Value Partners NY ETF in Sharia investments on the A shares in mainland China. So this facility was launched today, in fact this morning I believe, for Malaysians, including government bodies, to place money with the firm so that they can invest in selected businesses in China, namely educational, technology, and consumer products.
Okay, so before we go to the break, let me ask you.
Yeah.
I'm sure the COVID pandemic has been a worldwide effect, which we'll go through more in the second part. How has it affected our trade relationship between Hong Kong and Malaysia? In short.
Well, from an ordinary perspective, we still get our Malaysian products in Hong Kong. Food products still come. In fact, if you want durians, musang king, they are still coming in. So it has not affected trade. The only thing we noticed was consumers in the country has reduced. However, exports have gone up.
Okay.
And as you know, Malaysia exports a lot of rubber gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll go for a break and don't go away. Welcome back. We are talking with Mr. KC Gan, the Hong Kong and Macau chapter of the Malaysian Chamber of Commerce. And he is giving us his perspective in Hong Kong as a place for foreign living and investment. So KC, in the first part of the show, we were discussing how Malaysia has been closely connected with Hong Kong.
Yes.
And being the sort of established force in Hong Kong, you have the Consulate General, you have your Malaysian Chamber. Can you tell us more about your Malaysian Chamber? I'm very interested to know.
Yes.
Apart from serving business community, do you do any other things with Hong Kong at all?
Oh, yes, thank you. MACHAM was quite new, started only 7 years ago with the initial help of a group of business people like us from Malaysia, together with 44 founder members. And besides the main point of creating better opportunities for business people between Hong Kong and Malaysia, we actually wanted to make MACHAM quite different.
Okay.
We wanted to be a mover in good corporate social responsibility programs. So this is something that we feel, coming from a different place, living in Hong Kong for so many years, we would like to help and improve situations, especially in education, in healthcare, and so on. So we have done a lot of programs of social well-being, but two of them I would like to worth mention. One, when we started, we helped raise funds for a charity called Viva Children's Cancer Foundation. And this was raise money to help children who had suffered from leukemia. And these numbers are quite large. So they were being helped in mainland China and also in Hong Kong. That was the first thing we did. The second one, which we are doing now and progressing very well, is the MACHAM's Student Loan Fund.
Are they for the Malaysian students who come to study in our universities?
Yes. So with this fund, we provide finance to help Malaysian students in Hong Kong in all the 8 and 9 universities, including Macau, so that they can be prepared
I know at this juncture, I want to ask you, I mean, Hong Kong is quite an expensive city in the world, and I'm sure we'll go on next, we'll talk about Malaysia cost of living, which is considerably lower.
Yeah.
So is it a financial burden to the Malaysian students? And why do they want to come to Hong Kong to study?
Yeah. There are many Malaysian students who are not able to enter local universities. It's too expensive for them to go overseas. They have pretty good results. So what they do is they apply for scholarships which the Hong Kong universities provide. So most of them are on scholarships. Some of them are on part scholarship. However, they do not have enough funds for their living expenses. So MayCham will provide them funding, something in the region of 160,000 for one student over a period of 4 years.
Oh, I see. That's very
So
good.
it helps them a little bit. But more than that, besides funding, we also provide mentorship for them. We got our members to mentor them, and we also arrange for internships for these students so that they will become ready in Hong Kong when they start work.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's very
Right.
very nice. So maybe we move on more on the business opportunities. As you know, Hong Kong is a gateway.
Yeah.
Now we are in the Greater Bay Area and also the Belt and Road Initiative. What impact has it on the Malaysian business community? Especially, are we still a bridge between China and ASEAN?
Well, I told you in the beginning that the reason we came to Hong Kong, have an office, was to use Hong Kong as an office to invest in China. Well, with the GBA, with the expansion of the economy, the growth of mainland China's development, the reason is even more obvious because we are now on the doorstep of the second largest economy in the world, which has been growing, very high. So being in Hong Kong and being able to use the facilities, especially in the financial market, and to get proper information and networking, this is the place. So we find that Malaysian businesses find that they would like to come to Hong Kong and being just on the doorstep of the GBA.
So you've mentioned a few times that Malaysia treasures Hong Kong as a gateway.
Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, I'm sure there will be some drawbacks of Hong Kong that is not as favorable. Are there such? And what can the government to help? Because I'm sure we want more foreign investments in Hong Kong.
I think so far as our members have experienced, they are very, very efficient agencies like the Hong Kong TDC, like the Hong Kong Investment Authority, and some others. They have been extremely helpful, to provide necessary information as well as cooperation with different parts of mainland China.
So with the Belt and Road Initiative you mentioned, I mean, to us it's quite a far-fetched compared to the Greater Bay Area. Greater Bay Area. How has that helped Malaysia in that sense?
Malaysia is situated, as you know, between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. And we do need a lot of infrastructures. And also, as mentioned, China and Malaysia has actually gone into the development of a Malaysia-China Kuantan Industrial Park.
Okay.
So this is something that, they have been able to improve. And because of the increased development of infrastructure, which mainland China has great expertise in building railways, in building highways and ports. So the BRI program has actually benefited Malaysia.
Oh, yeah, the Belt and Road Initiative, yes.
Yeah.
So we had talked about the role of Hong Kong and Malaysia, the trade relationship. Let's move back to Malaysia, your hometown. What is Malaysia like? I'm sure many viewers have been to Malaysia, but from the chairman, give us some perspective in general. What are the major cities and how big is it and what is the situation right now?
Well, as you know, Malaysia has about 32.7 million population. Majority, 69% are Malays. Chinese forms about 22.5%. It's about 10% or less of Indians, and then we have other races. So it is actually very multiracial. And as far as the situation now, we are quite sad to hear that COVID-19 cases has increased to the region of 5,000 to 7,000 a day. And many people are suffering because they are not able to go out, they have no jobs. So actually, Maychem, we just started a couple of days ago to raise money so that we can buy food, something in the region of only 95 Hong Kong dollars, dry food, like rice and sugar and so on, to feed one family over 3 weeks. So that will be done probably in the next week.
Right. Casey, apart from the COVID, I've been reading on Malaysia before I meet you today, and I understand there are also what we call a white flag and black flag campaigns. And can you tell us briefly what's happening over there? It doesn't feel that the political situation is very stable. I'm sure many cities in the world or countries in the world are facing similar pressure from the people. Maybe you can let the viewers know what is the actual situation.
Okay, I think you have read from the news about the flags being raised.
Yes.
Now, these are the people during this period of lockdown who are not, number one, able to move out of their homes, and they are not able to have sufficient food to feed themselves. So when they have this flag outside their homes, it is actually a request for people
to help them,
to bring them food. That is the main thing. So obviously, Malaysia being such a big country, I'm sure any government will find it difficult, to feed everybody on an individual basis. So that's why the red flag and the black flag raises most people's concern. And like us, we are now helping them. And we are only one small part of the people.
In the last part of the show, I'm going to ask you some direct questions.
Okay, sure.
Recently, some Hong Kong people want to look at some alternatives, and Malaysia is one of the possibilities. And to me, Malaysia is very attractive because of your chili crab, your durian, your Penang laksa, char kway teow, etc., etc. Tell us, what are the attractive parts of Malaysia Hong Kong people should know? And I'm sure, as I mentioned earlier, there will be some pitfalls, there will be some difficulties. Can you give us some tips?
Well, most of our friends tell us the biggest aspect and the biggest export of Malaysia is the people. Friendly, versatile, and very helpful. So if you go to Malaysia, because Malaysians live in a multicultural, multiracial society, they have gone through life and being able to be flexible, to accept everybody's different religion and habits. So that's the main thing about Malaysia, besides the fact that the food is fantastic, and also the scenery, the beaches, the hills are very, very attractive.
Right. So, Casey, thank you very much for coming today. I'm very heartened to hear that Hong Kong is very much open for business and indeed a good place for foreign investment and living. And I think the most important thing is to let the world know that with the national security legislation, Hong Kong is back to a place of good investment and safe. And thank you for coming. And
thank you.
And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.